The room was silent except for the distant hum of the ventilation system. It was February 24th, 2000, inside the Walls unit in Huntsville, Texas, the most active execution chamber in the United States. At 6:18 p.m., a 62-year-old woman lay strapped to a narrow gurney, her frail arms pinned to the sides, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. Her name was Betty Lou Beets, a grandmother, a mother of five, and a woman many believed incapable of violence. To the casual observer, she looked like someone's Sunday school teacher, someone who baked pies on weekends and babysat grandchildren. But that wasn't why she was there. The state of Texas had sentenced her to death not for one killing, not for two, but for a series of calculated acts that spanned decades. A prison official leaned down and asked quietly, "Do you approach this moment with a clear conscience?" Betty lifted her head, looked straight ahead, and answered with a single steady word. "Yes." No tears, no apologies, no final declaration of innocence or guilt. As the warden asked if she wanted to speak any last words, Betty remained silent. She simply smiled faintly at her pastor and attorney, then closed her eyes almost as if drifting into sleep. Moments later, two small coughs broke the silence, then one deep breath, and then nothing. But her story did not end there. Her story began long before this moment, and it is darker, stranger, and more complex than anyone imagined. Because Betty Lou Beets did not become known as a killer overnight. Her violent path stretched back through marriages, disappearances, unexplained injuries, and two bodies buried just steps from her home. This is the chilling story of how an ordinary-looking grandmother became one of the most notorious women ever executed in Texas. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to support our channel and keep stories like this alive. Let's go back to the night everything truly unraveled. August 1983, Cedar Creek Lake in Henderson County, Texas. It was a calm Saturday evening. Inside a modest little house sat three people: Betty, her fifth husband Jimmy Don Beets, and her son Robert Branson, who visited often. Jimmy, a 46-year-old Dallas firefighter, lounged peacefully in his recliner, the kind of chair a hard-working man sinks into after a long week. The TV glowed softly in the corner. Everything felt normal, quiet, isolated, and routine. But inside Betty's mind, something else was happening. At some point during Robert's visit, she pulled him aside. Her face was calm, her voice steady. "I can't do this anymore," she said. Robert assumed she meant marriage troubles. He was wrong. Then she spoke the sentence that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Jimmy has to die tonight." No emotion, no panic, just a flat, cold decision, like she was talking about taking out trash. Then she told Robert to leave. No explanation. He obeyed. Inside the house, Jimmy Don relaxed in his recliner, unaware that his fate had already been sealed. Betty walked into the living room with a handgun. Without warning, without hesitation, she fired. Two shots to the head. Jimmy Don never had a chance to stand, speak, or defend himself. Betty stared at him for a few seconds. No shaking hands, no panic, just calculation. Hours later, Robert returned. He found the body exactly where she left it, and Betty had a simple request. "Help me get rid of him." Together, they carried Jimmy's body outside, to the decorative wishing well he and Robert had built just months earlier. It was supposed to be a cute garden feature. Instead, it became his grave. They lowered Jimmy into the well and sealed it with bricks and concrete, until it looked perfectly untouched, pretty, innocent, almost poetic. But Betty wasn't done. The next morning, she and Robert staged a disappearance. They scattered crushed heart medication on Jimmy's boat, loosened the propeller to make it seem like it malfunctioned, and then pushed the boat into the lake. That same afternoon, Betty phoned police. Her husband had gone fishing and didn't return. She played the grieving wife flawlessly. Rescue teams searched for 3 weeks, dragging the murky lake, combing the shoreline, calling Jimmy's name over loudspeakers. Betty stayed home asking fire department chaplains not about his body, but about his pension, his insurance, and his benefits. No one suspected a thing. Jimmy's body lay just 50 feet away the whole time. Betty believed she had committed the perfect crime, but what no one knew yet was that this wasn't the first time a husband of hers had vanished. To understand how she became capable of such things, we must go back decades. Betty Lou Donovan was born on March 12, 1937 in Roxborough, North Carolina. Her childhood was shattered early. As a little girl, she suffered from measles, leaving her hearing permanently damaged. She struggled socially, often misunderstood, isolated, and frustrated. But according to Betty's later claims, her real trauma came from her own home. She said her father abused her, a horrific allegation she never reported until she was already on death row. We will never know the full truth, but it shaped the narrative she later built around her life. At age 12, her mother was institutionalized, and Betty became caretaker to her younger siblings. Her childhood ended overnight. By 15, she married her first husband, Robert Branson, a marriage filled with chaos, poverty, emotional instability, and constant breakups. Over 17 years, they had 6 children. When the marriage finally ended in 1969, Betty's life spiraled into a pattern that would define her future. Betty married 6 different men. 2 of them she married twice. Almost every relationship ended the same way. Violent fights, accusations of abuse, and in some cases, gunfire. Her second husband, Bill Lane, survived being shot by her twice. Her third husband, Ronnie Threlkeld, survived when she allegedly tried to run him over with her car. 2 men lived, 2 would die. In 1981, her fourth husband, Doyle Wayne Barker, simply disappeared. Betty told neighbors he left her. No one asked questions, but when police later searched her property, they found his remains buried beneath the garage, shot with the same .38 caliber pistol used on Jimmy Don. Betty never faced formal charges for Doyle's death, but prosecutors used it to show her disturbing pattern. Marry, exploit, eliminate, collect benefits, move on. For over 20 years, she played the grieving wife flawlessly. For nearly 2 years after Jimmy Don's disappearance, Betty lived freely, but in 1985, everything came crashing down. A quiet, anonymous tip reached law enforcement. Someone claimed Betty's story didn't add up. The tip suggested checking her property. When investigators arrived, they didn't find just one grave. They found 2. Jimmy Don Beets in the wishing well, Doyle Wayne Barker under the garage. Betty was arrested immediately. Her trial shocked Texas. Her own children testified against her, claiming she involved them in hiding bodies and disposing of evidence. Prosecutors painted her as a calculated black widow who targeted husbands for financial gain. The jury agreed. She was sentenced to death. In prison, Betty maintains she acted in self-defense or that her children misunderstood past events. Supporters argued she survived years of domestic abuse. Opponents said she manipulated every person she ever loved. Appeals failed. Clemency was denied. And on February 24, 2000, she became only the second woman executed in Texas since the reinstatement of the death penalty. The story of Betty Lou Beets reminds us that evil can hide behind the most ordinary faces: a grandmother, a wife, a neighbor, someone who blends into daily life while carrying unimaginable secrets. Thank you for watching The Final Sentence. If you found this story compelling and want more deep dive true crime cases, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next investigation.